Have you ever felt afraid to question your faith using logic? Ever thought that thinking too much might push you away from God? If those questions have crossed your mind, know that you're not alone. There's something inside us, maybe shaped by traditions or rigid religious experiences, that makes us believe faith and reason are opposites, as if they're standing on opposite sides of some spiritual battlefield. As if believing means shutting our eyes to reasoning, as if doubting for a moment means betraying God's presence. But what if I told you that this tension between faith and reason is nothing more than a false dichotomy? What if thinking deeply is actually an act of faith? What if God was never afraid of our questions? C.S. Lewis, one of the greatest Christian thinkers of the 20th century, believed exactly that. He wasn't a pastor nor a trained theologian. He was a university professor, a lover of literature and logic, who spent part of his life as an atheist before becoming one of the most brilliant defenders of the Christian faith. And it was precisely his logical and questioning mind that led him back to God. Lewis's faith wasn't born from an emotional vacuum, but from a journey marked by intense thought, reason, analysis, and pain. And perhaps that's what makes his legacy so powerful to this day. In this video, we'll walk together through the difficult paths where faith and reason meet, sometimes in tension, sometimes in harmony, and try to understand why, for Lewis, they weren't enemies, but essential allies. We'll talk about doubts we often don't dare to say out loud, fears that grow in silence, and questions that feel too dangerous to ask in church. Because yes, many people feel ashamed for not being completely certain all the time, as if faith were only valid when it comes without cracks. But maybe, just maybe, you'll discover through this conversation that mature faith isn't the one that ignores the questions, but the one that refuses to give up on them. C.S. Lewis once said, "Faith is the art of holding on to things your reason has once accepted in spite of your changing moods." And that changes everything, because it takes faith out of the realm of denial and places it into the field of conscious choice. A choice that is informed, reflective, sustained, not by blind impulse, but by an understanding that recognizes the limits of reason without discarding it. For Lewis, faith was not a leap into darkness, but a firm step toward a light that reason alone could not reach, though it pointed the way like a compass. Now think with me for a moment. How many times have you heard that faith simply means believing? But believing in what and why? And what about when pain hits? What about when things stop making sense? What about when logic screams one thing and your heart whispers another?
Those inner conflicts are part of what makes us human, and trying to silence them, pretending they don't exist, only weakens us. Lewis knew this. He himself wrestled with deep inner battles between heart and mind. He experienced grief, loss, injustice, the absence of answers, and still chose to believe. Not despite the questions, but with them, carrying them with honesty, humility, and courage. So let's clear something up right now. Doubt is not the enemy of faith. Indifference is. It's better to have a faith that wrestles, that cries out, that questions with sincerity, than a faith that is numb, mechanical, and inherited without ever being tested. C.S. Lewis knew this well. He didn't arrive at faith through emotional comfort or superficial traditions. He arrived through conflict, through reading, through relentless thinking, through the friction between pain and truth. And do you know what he discovered? That reason alone could not explain the deep hunger of the human soul, nor could it fully account for love, beauty, longing, or eternity. Reason is a powerful tool, but it isn't the whole story. It points us toward meaning, but cannot create meaning on its own. And this is where faith enters, not as a denial of reason, but as its completion. Lewis often used this analogy. He said that just as the eye is made to see light, The mind is made to recognize truth. But some truths cannot be fully proven. They must be trusted even when we don't fully see. Does that mean we should throw logic out the window? Of course not. Lewis believed Christianity was the most rational worldview available. He didn't believe despite the evidence, he believed because of it. But he also knew that reason has limits. And beyond those limits, faith begins. Faith isn't irrational. It's transrational. It takes us beyond what reason can grasp, but never contradicts the truth reason has already seen. That's the secret. Now think with me. How many people have abandoned their faith? Not because they lacked belief, but because they were never given space to think. In many churches, asking questions is frowned upon. Doubt is seen as weakness. Logic is dismissed as too intellectual. And so many believers walk away not because they lost their faith, but because they were never allowed to develop it. But Lewis reminds us, true faith is not threatened by thought. On the contrary, it is strengthened by it. When you think about your faith, when you examine it, test it, compare it, question it, you're not betraying God. You're seeking Him with your whole mind, just as Jesus commanded. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. Matthew 22, verse 37. So why are we afraid to think? Why do we fear that exploring questions might lead us away from truth? Lewis would say, if your faith cannot survive honest questions, then maybe it was built on something too fragile.
But the real gospel, the truth that comes from Christ, doesn't shatter under scrutiny. It endures. It shines even brighter when the lights of reason are pointed at it. And here's something remarkable about C.S. Lewis. He didn't rely solely on logic to talk about faith. He used imagination. And that wasn't a contradiction. It was part of his strategy. Because Lewis understood that truth doesn't only reach us through facts. It also reaches through beauty, through stories, through symbols, through emotion. That's why so many of his books, like the Chronicles of Narnia, aren't theology books. They're narratives that awaken something deeper inside the soul. For Lewis, faith wasn't just a set of propositions to be defended. It was a mystery to be entered. And reason was a key to the door, not the entire room. He believed that the gospel is not only true, but also beautiful and good. And when we neglect beauty or refuse to engage imagination, we end up presenting faith in a dry, lifeless way. How many people reject Christianity, not because they found better answers, but because they never saw the beauty of the truth we claim to live? Lewis challenged this with all his might. He invited us to present the Christian faith not as a cage for the mind, but as a home for the whole human being. Mind, heart, body, imagination, and soul. Now, pause with me for a second. Look within. Have you ever felt guilty for asking too many questions? For not feeling enough during a worship service? Or for wondering whether your beliefs could really stand the test of time and culture? If so, you're not weak. You're not less spiritual. You're human. And God meets us in our humanity, not just in our certainties. That's something Lewis helped millions of people rediscover. Because if you look at the stories of many former believers, you will see that what pushed them away wasn't the lack of God's presence, but the lack of space to explore. So here's a powerful truth. If God is real, truly real, then he has nothing to fear from your questions. Your doubts do not intimidate him. Your critical thinking doesn't offend him. Your curiosity doesn't distance you. It draws you closer when done with sincerity. Faith and reason aren't enemies. They're companions. Reason helps to clear the path. Faith helps us walk it. And there's one more quote from Lewis that ties this all together. It once wrote, "I believe in Christianity as I believe that the sun has risen, not only because I see it, but because by it I see everything else." Isn't that brilliant? He doesn't believe just because he looked at Christianity and thought, yes, that makes sense. He believes because through Christianity, everything else, life, pain, joy, love, truth, began to make sense. And maybe that's the most powerful lesson of all.
Faith is not about ignoring the questions. It's about choosing to keep walking, even when the answers aren't complete. Because life itself is full of paradoxes, pain and joy, silence and presence, uncertainty and peace. And the only thing deep enough to hold all of this together is faith that thinks and reason that listens. C.S. Lewis didn't try to eliminate mystery. He embraced it with reverence. He didn't treat questions as threats. He treated them as companions on the road of truth. And maybe we need to do the same. Maybe it's time to stop dividing ourselves between emotional believers and rational thinkers. God created both. God works through both. What he wants is hearts that are honest, minds that are open, souls that are seeking, not perfect, but present. So if you've come this far in the video, if something resonated within you, if you've ever wrestled with these tensions between thinking and believing, know this, you're not alone. Many of us are on this journey too. And there's no shame in carrying questions as long as you keep walking with them in the direction of truth. Because there's something sacred about searching, something holy about the tension between I don't understand and I still believe. Something powerful about saying I'm not certain, but I trust. If this message touched you in any way, leave a comment below. Something like, I'm walking by faith and reason. Or even just say, I'm here. It's a way of telling others they're not alone, and it helps this message reach more people who might need it today. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do it now. We are building a community where it's safe to think, feel, believe, question, and grow. This is a space for people who are tired of superficial answers and are hungry for depth, truth, and beauty. Click like not just to support the video, but to show that these kinds of conversations matter. That faith can be thoughtful, that Christianity is not afraid of honest minds. And if you know someone who's walking through a season of doubt, send them this video. You never know what one word, one insight might awaken inside them. And if you want to go even deeper, there's another video right here on the screen that connects perfectly with what we've just explored. Clip it and keep walking with me there. We're just getting started.